Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today is another Rockies Insider, Jose Pérez from El Extra Base. What's going on today, Jose?
Thank you, Patrick. Have to be here. Thank you for having me, and congrats for your show. That's very good content. I will try to do my best to explain all this stuff about Elias Diaz. Let me try that. I'm not sure about it, but let me try it.
Yeah, we got to figure out what's going on with Elias Diaz. I want to say he's gone but not forgotten, but he's not actually gone. We'll talk about that.
Nah,
We'll talk a little bit about that Diamondback series. Not much to say in the positive front, but there's still some spillover here going into the San Diego series coming up this weekend back at Coors Field. I did want to talk a little bit about Todd Helton Day. I think you're going to be in the building, and just wanted to first off just pick your brain on that, because I want to tell fans what to expect, because it's going to be a big event on Saturday. But how excited are you for Todd Helton Day this weekend?
yeah, it's gonna be my first time in a ceremony like that. It's my first year as a Rockies insider or our MLB insider, because actually I'm just covering every team that is in the building. So yeah, Todd Helton is a great figure there. Here in Denver is very important figure. Uh, for the Rockies and for the Rockies fans is a huge part of the community and for the city, and it's going to be huge. It's a huge event. A bobblehead. I want my bobblehead. I went to meet Peyton Manning. That's my idol. My idol. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I expect it to be a sellout. It may already be sold out right now. We'll kind of wait and see. 30,000 bobbleheads given away, first 30,000. So just make sure you're there on time. There's a whole pregame ceremony going on. Clint Hurdle's going to be there. Peyton Manning, Todd Helton's former teammate at the University of Tennessee. I also expect for the gold ring to go around. Todd Helton's number 17. Larry Walker got the gold ring treatment as a Hall of Famer. So got to think that Todd Helton's going to get his, and his Hall of Fame plaque is also going to be on display. So that's something that I don't think every fan is going to be guaranteed to have an opportunity to see. I know last time with Larry Walker in 2021 that there's only so many folks that could get in. There was a super huge line and they basically had to cut it off at a certain point. So if that's something that you're really valuing and you might not ever get a chance to go to Cooperstown in upstate New York and you want to see that plaque, you might want to make a beeline right for that right away.
And where you can see it, I'm not sure about that. It's in the field or back in the center field.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're going to put it exactly. I think they might have had it up like in the rooftop area
All
last
right.
year in 2021 for Larry Walker. Maybe it was even kind of in center field. I just know that for the press, we went up to the rooftop there and talked with Larry. So I imagine we'll have a chance to talk with Todd, his favorite
Great.
memories. Maybe Manning will go by. Maybe you'll get a chance to meet your childhood idol there.
Yeah, of course.
But look, if we're talking about idols, I mean, a Venezuelan idol, a Rockies catching idol, Elias Díaz. We'll get to some of the great memories that he's made for Rockies fans, for himself, for the franchise as a whole. But news came down on Wednesday. Ken Rosenthal saying that Elias Díaz had been placed on irrevocable outright waivers. And typically, we think waivers means you waived, you're gone. And when you have a
Mhm.
player of Elias Diaz's caliber, you think somebody's going to pick him up. But as it turns out, he's not been waived. He's been placed on waivers, but he hasn't been waived. So this could go one of two ways.
Yeah, that's the difference. I mean, you have to take into account that DFA, designated for assignment, is a process, and outright waivers is another process. I mean, inside or within the DFA, you can find the outright waivers because it's part of the process. It's the first step. You put the player on DFA, and you get rid of him from the 40-man roster. Okay, so you have another spot to fill in with another players coming from the AAA or a player that is not in the 40-man roster. You can fill that spot with that player. But in irrevocable outright waivers, you put the players on waivers in order to another team take that player, all right, and assume that salary. Okay, you it's kind of
You have to pay him.
dumpies.
Yeah, he still
Yeah, you have
has
to pay
money
him.
left on the books, and I think
Correct.
that's part of the hiccup is that you're not just getting a player almost
Hmm.
for free or at the league minimum.
No.
He still has, I think, a little over $1 million.
1.5.
Yeah,
1.5. Yeah, 1.5 million. So that's a way to do it. I mean, the Angels did that last year, if you remember, because that they had the case of Otani, because Otani, uh, they wanted to stay below the CBT threshold,
right.
and they got rid of any players that have contract for millions or 2 millions, 3 millions, in order to stay below and with a qualifying offer to Shohei Otani, get a better compensation for him.
Yeah,
So
they
that
put out
was
like
all the
CJ
process.
Crone, CJ Crone,
Hmm.
boom, he was put out there. Randall Grichuk, we saw Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, and in
Reynaldo
fact,
Lopez.
yeah, in fact, with Randall Grichuk, he was not claimed by anybody on waivers and then was placed on those waivers again later on the season. Hey, if anybody changes their mind. And so in the case of Diaz, as it was with I believe with Randall Grichuk, Diaz has the option to say either I'm going to stay put should he not be claimed. If he gets claimed by somebody, if he goes to Houston or someone like that, you wish him nothing but the best. Hopefully he can win a World Series ring. But if he doesn't get claimed, he has a choice. He can either elect free agency and then maybe cut a deal with another team. But if he elects free agency, he's letting go of that, $1.5 million or so that is left remaining to him. And he was already pretty much told by all of these teams, the other 29 teams, we
Mhm.
don't want you for a 1.5 mil. Are they going to want you for one? Are they going to want you for much less than that? So I almost can't see him choosing that free agent route. So if he doesn't do that, guess what? He's still a member of the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, but I know something about the teams, because the teams, they don't value the money as much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be more clear about this. They value
1.5 million is not a ton of money.
it's not a ton of money, and the capital value, the prospect value, the prospect capital is worth more than 1.5 million. So any team maybe say that I don't want to trade my prospect, even if it's a free prospect for and 1.5 million for Diaz. I prefer to pick him up in waivers. So that's a situation that can change in that case. And there are plenty of teams, not too much teams, but there are some teams, as for example, the D-backs. The D-backs has a situation right now because Gabriel Moreno is hurt, and they don't have too much depth there. So they were playing with Adrian del Castillo. He was coming from AAA, and he's not a good defender. He's a rookie. He's not a good defender. And they have another Venezuelan catchers there, and I don't know if they have the depth, and maybe they can try that. And another thing about this is that the teams do this at this moment because of the postseason eligibility. Uh, the teams are, I mean, any player that is being on the roster or is in the roster by August 31st is eligible to play the postseason.
They're good.
After that, it's not eligible. If you
No.
remember the case for Matt Moore was placed on waivers. I think he was taken by the Guardians,
Guardians. Yeah.
and then the Guardians put him again on waivers, and then the Marlins took him. But then he was not able to play with the Marlins in the postseason. So that's something to take into consideration. And Elias Diaz can be placed on waivers several times. It's not this time, maybe next week, maybe next week, or maybe next week. And that's a situation that can go and on and on. So,
Sure. Yeah, he could stay on the active roster. Could also get reassigned to AAA. So he's still a Rocky until he's with another team. He's more likely than not going to stay a Rocky. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Should he do? Should he move on? Should another team pick him up like the Diamondbacks, who have that need? And look, the Diamondbacks know him really well. They know his strengths and weaknesses. I think he would be a good fit. That's a good thing you're pointing out there. But should he move on? You say, well, what's next? Who is going to fill his spot? And sort of in the meantime, because I think it's 11 o'clock tomorrow morning on Friday is
mhm.
when that decision has to come down by, and Rockies have a game at night. And so if you're going to call somebody up from AAA, whether it's a catcher or not, you sort of have to put those things into work. So that's where the taxi squad fits in. So we'll almost certainly have somebody new in the clubhouse on Friday. We just might not have a corresponding move because on one hand you say, well, they need another catcher. So is that going to be their top catching prospect in Drew Romo? Is it going to be a more veteran guy, older guy like a Willie MacIver who knows the pitching staff a little bit better? Or do you call up a red hot Nolan Jones and now Hunter Goodman becomes your backup catcher for the time being? Maybe you get through the weekend and then you call up one of those AAA catchers. A lot of moving parts going on here right now, Jose.
Correct, correct. They have different options. I think the way I see it right now in the depth chart, maybe Hunter Goodman is going to take the catcher spot. I mean the backup catcher spot, and then they can bring up Nolan Jones. I think he's healthy. He's playing very well right now. So I don't know. Maybe that's the move that the corresponding move for this in case Elias Diaz uh, goes to another team.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to have your cake and eat it too. We've talked this past week on the Rockies Insider about Hunter Goodman, 60 plate appearances since, the end of June. So he's just not getting those reps. He's not getting playing time. Well, as a backup catcher, you certainly are going to probably have him play at least, twice a week, maybe even 3 times in certain circumstances. You get Jones in that outfield and we can finally see for the first time, because we haven't had it yet all year with Jones being on the IL, with Beck not starting the season in Denver, but we can have that outfield of Jordan Beck, Brenton Doyle, Nolan Jones. I think that might move the needle a little bit more for the front office than calling up one of those young catchers. Although I still do think that at some point, maybe in September, the Rockies will give Drew Romo an opportunity as he needs to be protected ahead of this winter's Rule 5 draft. So I think we'll see Romo eventually. I'm just not sure that we're going to see him yet.
And they need to bring up 2 guys September, to call up 2 guys in September and in September for to have 28 men in the roster. So yeah, maybe that's the opportunity to have them.
Yeah. So Elias Diaz, if this is the end, and you know what, we should always be trying to give the flowers to the guys while they're still here. So you know what, if we end up seeing Elias Diaz for the final 6+ weeks of the season, great. We had just happened to say some nice things about him while he's still here. Does it pretty much start and end? Maybe not end, but does it start with your favorite Elias Diaz memory? MVP 2023 All-Star game. The National League loses every year except 2023 in Seattle because of that monster 2-run home run that Diaz hit to give them the go-ahead. Is that number one on his Rockies Hall of Fame plaque, if you will?
I think it should. I think it should. And Elias was a very fun guy, a very funny guy. We have these jokes, Venezuelan jokes inside the clubhouse, and he loved the city. He loved the city. He always tell me that because I'm new. I'm just 2 years here in Denver, so I'm gonna miss him if in case he goes away, and if he not, he's going to go to the free agency even in September. So it's not that far from now. So yeah, definitely the All-Star game has to be up there for him.
Yeah, I felt very lucky to be there in Seattle at T-Mobile Park covering that. It was getting late in the game, and I'm talking with some of the people that were around me, some of the other folks from the NL West that I'm friends with in the industry, and it was like, man, when's there going to be a Rocky guy playing? Like, it was still fun watching all the All-Stars, but it's like, there's no Rocky coming in. And then here comes up Diaz, and wait a minute, we got a runner on, and all of a sudden he hits this ball out, and immediately it becomes he might be the MVP. This is the game changer. Craig Kimbrell, closes it down. So for me, that was an awesome memory, covering that, getting behind the scenes, Rockies PR, allowing myself, Kevin Henry, my guest on Tuesday's show, behind the scenes, going into the National League clubhouse and seeing those exchanges with his friends from the NL squad. Got a chance to hold on to the Ted Williams MVP bat, this gigantic, heavy crystal bat. So that was a special, memory for me. And even if that hadn't happened, it was still special for Diaz and for the Rockies because he was the first ever Rockies catcher to make an all-star team. That in and of itself, I think, is important. And, he goes down with the second most games played at catcher in Rockies history. And if you remember, He also helped snap the longest Grand Slam drought in team history. He hit one on September 10th, 2021. They went all of 2020 without a home run. And then he hit the next one on June 23rd, 2023, 256 games that they went without a Grand Slam. Elias Diaz was on both ends of that.
And it was at Coors? It was
It
here at
was.
Coors? All right. All right. It was funny because every time I went to the park, he always say, I'm going to hit today. I'm going to hit today. I'm going to have 2 home runs. I'm going to have cut stealing, something like that. I'm going to do best. I'm going to do my best today, But it's funny because he never was a very lauded prospect. He was not well regarded, and he had to battle. He had to battle to be here in this position. 6 years. He had a good contract with the Rockies, and for him, is very grateful with the organization. I know that he's going to be good with his new role, with his new team, and let's see how it goes with the free agency.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you talk about not being like a highly touted prospect. I want to say it might have been 2018 was a big year for him offensively with Pittsburgh. But then after 2019, they actually designate him for assignment. He's brought in at 2020, and it's like, okay, this is an interesting guy. It could fill in nicely behind Tony Walters as a backup. And we didn't really see much of him in 2020. Remember, that was the pandemic season. He ended up reporting late to summer camp. Visa issues, kind of prevented him from having a normal 60-game pandemic season. Hard to say normal because the whole season wasn't normal. And then took off from there. Then you started to see that the dude was a tank. For me, I called him El Tanque because he was a tank where he got beat up behind the plate all the time. And you never saw him grimace in pain. Sometimes behind the scenes, we'd see him limp just a little bit. But the dude was just so tough, and you had to force him onto the IL, and you rarely even saw that. I mean, he's got 2 bad calves right now, and yet he was still going out there and playing. And I wouldn't be surprised if he continued to play almost every single day as a catcher, despite the lower body being totally destroyed. He is quite literally a tank.
I think I talked to him on July, first day of July, maybe 4th of July, Independence Day. I asked him about how he felt about the injury and all the stuff, and he said it still hurts, but I'm going to play. And I think that he was feeling hurt in his calf really affect his offensive numbers, right? And but he loves the team, as I said, and he was going to play. He's a tanque. He's going to play every single day. He wants to be there. It's the same case with Ezequiel Tovar. I remember one day I saw Ezequiel Tovar. It was a day off for him, and he was not angry, but he was not happy also. So he was like, "Come on, I want to play today. Come on, it's the Dodgers. I want to play against the Dodgers. I don't want to be here, sitting here doing nothing." So it's that kind of mentality, the mindset that they have, like Warriors, that they want to play every single day and they want to perform every single night.
Yeah, that's a critical part. I think a lot of people obviously don't get to see behind the scenes, just Diaz being that leader for so many of the young guys and being a player that he's friends with everybody. Like I can remember on Sunday, someone sneezed and him and Tyler Kinley are like eyeballing each other like bulldogs, like they're about to get in a fight, but they're joking with each other. So, if sometimes in clubhouses, you can have a contingency of more Spanish speaking players over here, the American players over here. Diaz is this link for both of them. And he's a link for the young players to say, you know what, despite being banged up, I'm going to go out there and play at the toughest position, on a roster that has someone like Chris Bryant, who does have serious issues. There are those questions lingering like, hey, you might have to work through some of these injuries. You might have to play through that, find a way. Bryant hasn't quite found that, but Elias Diaz, despite all his injuries, has always found a way to go out and play his best with whatever he's got left.
Correct. And you mentioned something very interesting about his leadership and his leadership, especially over the Venezuelan guys who are there, and not only Venezuelans, Dominican players also I heard something about him regarding to his leadership from Elias Montero when he was there. Molina always talks great about him, and Ezekiel Tovar, they are close together in the clubhouse, and they always talk and do some jokes and all this stuff. He's a very special guy. As you said, he's like the connector between the American players and the Latin American players, and I think that's why he was there, and he was one of the leaders of the team.
Yeah, it's true. Diaz also 4 consecutive opening day starts as a catcher. First and only Rocky to ever do that. Most at bats for a Rockies catcher, hitting 3rd or 4th in the lineup. Think about that. Again, his bat, he's doing it. He's doing it defensively. Most games played in a single season, 125 games behind the plate last year. He just posts. He's a tank. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Oh, actually, 2 things. One, I was going back and the mental Rolodex. All right, favorite Diaz memories. You know, when DJ LeMahieu came back last year, that was the first time LeMahieu had been back at Coors Field since he left to go to the Yankees. And despite a somewhat lackluster response from the crowd, I think, you know, it had been 5 years since 2018. So some of the new people, the transplants that had just come to Denver, they didn't maybe know the history of LeMahieu. The hardcore, diehard fans, they did know. But Diaz went, stepped out, took a visit to the mound to give LeMahieu that opportunity to get his applause. LeMahieu and Diaz didn't play together. They were separated by a year plus. So for Diaz to be aware of that kind of, again, shows you the type of character that he is. But I want to get your thoughts on, I should know the date off the top of my head. I don't. I think it was 2022. But that day in Detroit, you've got Diaz behind the plate, Antonio Senzatella on the mound, Jonathan Daza in center field, right up the middle, 3 Venezuelan players for Miguel Cabrera getting that 3,000th hit. I know for Diaz, Daza, and Senzatella, all of them were just elated to be a part of that major moment.
Yeah, it was a great moment for Venezuelan fans, for Venezuelan baseball. I remember that day because Senzatella was the pitcher, as you said, and you know the first guy who goes to help Cabrera was Jose Iglesias. We talk about Jose Iglesias. He's Cuban, but he played with him in Detroit. So yeah, I remember that day was the coverage for that game was enormous in Venezuela, and you know that in Venezuela we have a lot of people who is abroad, is out of the country, and you can say that people feel like that kind of sense of nationality or love for the country during that day, and having a pitcher there, Venezuelan pitcher, a Venezuelan catcher, and a Venezuelan center field in the same game where the biggest figure in the Venezuelan baseball history having his 3,000 hits, it was a really important day for us.
It was pretty cool. And in fact, the original game I think that might have been the first game of a doubleheader. The game on Friday had gotten rained out, and Jonathan Daza wasn't originally starting center field in that game. And I can remember thinking, oh, he's got to be in there for 3,000. It gets rained out, gets pushed back a day. And then in the new lineup, he's actually in there. So it's wonderful how those things play out. So that's an all-time great moment. And, you know, as you said, what that represents to Venezuela, only the second Venezuelan-born player to win MVP in the All-Star game after Dave Concepcion in 1982 in Montreal, part of that big red machine. So such a beautiful thing. So if that's the end of Elias Diaz, man, he made some amazing memories and definitely is one of maybe he goes on the Mount Rushmore from the 2021 to 2024. If you're talking about a 4 or 5 year era, you know, I think he's one of the most critical players from that time span. And if not, and he's still around, we'll be really excited to
maybe
say
he's
hi
here tomorrow. He's here tomorrow.
Who will not be in the building on Friday will be Riley Pint. He was just optioned down to AAA. Had a pretty rough outing on Wednesday against the Diamondbacks. Just unfortunately doesn't really have any command or control. He walked 2. He plunked 2 hitters, ended up striking out 2. gave up 4 runs in that outing against the Diamondbacks. Now in his career has a 22.09 ERA, a whip of 3, meaning 3 base runners are getting on each inning. 5 walks, 2 hit by pitches, and 3 1/3 innings pitched in the majors. You just can't give up that many free passes.
Correct. And it was a brutal series. I remember I watched that game on Tuesday. Uh, Very well played by the Rockies. And then Victor Bonic, I think he had the stuff. He had the stuff, but somehow the D-backs that are a pretty good team find a way to do some damage. The hit from Jay McCarty was heartbreaking. Sorry, I hate that. Maybe he just put the bat on the ball and he was a hit for in third base for the third base. So yeah, I think it was just brutal, that series against the D-backs. And now
Yeah.
we have a very difficult series against the Padres that are playing really, really good. Even Martin Perez is pitching well.
Even Martin Perez is pitching well. Yeah, that's all you need to know. Yeah, for Vodnik, I think I don't know if fans are necessarily upset. I've been the blown safe. I think that's going to happen when you've got a young reliever. It happened. We saw it with Justin Lawrence a little bit last year. Unfortunately, he hasn't really been able to rebound in 2024. So Vodnik, you take the good with the bad when you've got a rookie closer like that. Still leads all NL rookie closers in saves. So that's going to happen. I think he very much is going to be a important figure in the Rockies bullpen going forward. If the Rockies can go out and get a closer for next year, I think that's going to benefit not just the bullpen, but I think it's going to benefit Vodnik. I mean, imagine how much success he could potentially have in the 8th inning, setting up a veteran closer. It's still a big spot, but now that the entire game isn't on his back, it allows him to evolve a little bit and to really earn that spot in the 9th inning. He's still the best option right now, but it's going to happen, as you said, during that 5-4 loss on Tuesday. They get blown out on Wednesday. That Little League home run by Jock Peterson in the first that just barely gets down the line. You get the throwing error by Tolia. They score 4 in the first, and Tanner Gordon can't finish the first inning, and that was pretty much it in general from the Diamondbacks. In that series, the 3-game sweep. And yeah, as you said, another really hot team. But the Rockies are going back to Coors Field, and it's going to be Helton Day. What's more likely, Manuel? You've been following enough of this team to just see how wild it is at Coors Field and to know that you have to expect the unexpected from the Rockies. What do you think is more likely? A Padres sweep in Denver or the Rockies sweep the Padres? What's more likely? I mean, I know it's more likely the Padres sweep, but
I mean, the Rockies has been in the. I think the Rockies swept the Guardians. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. They swept the Guardians here.
I don't know if that was a sweep or that was 2 out of 3. Yeah,
2 out of 3.
And they were I think you might have been right. Yeah, because they were like the best team in the American League at that point.
And they played before against the Rangers, and they swept the Rangers.
Them. That was a sweep, yes.
And after that sweep, the Rangers are not here anymore.
Yeah.
So
true.
We don't know. The Coors Field is Coors Field. You have to live it to feel it. You have to live this to feel the experience to play in Coors. You can, as you said before, you can have games that are 12-3 in the 5th inning and finish 15-14. We have experienced that here in Denver. So we don't know. I don't know. I think the Rockies are gonna win the series 2-1. Not a sweep for anybody, but 2-1 is gonna be the series for the Rockies.
I think that's probably more likely. Yeah. Then after that, they lose the series 2-1, but I think they'll probably end up winning because again, it's Coors Field. The vibes are going to be in the ballpark with Helton, Hurdle, Peyton Manning, and the Rockies play well against the Padres. They really do. They just seem to pester them. And after losing 3 in a row, they're going to know, hey man, we got to get this. We got to figure out a couple of things. So they're going to be playing their best. We'll preview that series tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Javier Reyes, who covers the Padres for Locked On Padres and for Just Baseball. And we'll give Dylan a shout out here in the chat. Lucas Gilbreth and Drew Romo. That's who he's predicting to get called up. Now with Pint going down, there's another spot in the bullpen. Buddy likes to have a lefty there. Chasing Shreve gone. You could go Antoine Kelly, but Gilbreth has looked good in his rehab starts. I could see that one. I think you're going to have at least one of those, right, Dylan?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, Jose, thanks for joining us. We'll get out of here now. Go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can check out all your content.
Thank you, Patrick.
El Extra Baseball, right, is where they can read more of your work.
Yeah, El Extra Base. Yeah, correct. El Extra Base, and you can follow my account. It's MQ27out. It's pretty much in Spanish, but you can have the Google Translator. I write things about contractual issues or sabermetricians or anything that you can, anything about this great sports that is called baseball.
And that's a great suggestion too. You go, oh, I got to take that extra step. Here's the thing, Jose, you're getting interviews with players that might not talk as openly as honestly through a translator, or they're feeling a little bit more comfortable. So you get exclusives. You get conversations with players that, again, you might not typically see conversations with, and have such really great in-depth interviews and conversations with. So I definitely recommend folks going over, checking out Jose Perez's work. Great stuff. Thank you for joining me over on YouTube or a podcast, wherever you go. Still waiting to get the first review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify podcast. So do that. I will read that on air. I will make sure to give you a shout out if you can leave me a review at Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons, MLB. On TikTok, Instagram, all that, at Rockies_insider. And again, tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. as we preview the Padres series. And I unveil my big sign-off. That's my sign-off. Tune in tomorrow.